The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
And then you had no contact with Charles after that, correct?
Well, he was dead, so clearly I didn't have contact with him.
What did you tell them about me in those interviews?
Objection.
Do you feel like you have something to offer here today in relation to the crime that I'm charged with?
Objection relevance.
Did you see or hear or personally witness me conspire with Alex Cox to kill my husband, Charles Vallow?
No, but I saw a ton of evidence that did.
Cult Mom back in court today, potentially for the closing arguments. Will we hear any doomsday talk? We're previewing the day ahead in Arizona. Plus, as this trial wraps up, Lori Vallow Daybell will be back in court for another trial soon. This one for the attempted murder of her niece's ex-husband. So will she act as her own attorney again? Also this hour, we've got new information pouring in on the deadly shooting at Florida State University. We're digging deeper into the suspect's background and shining a light on the victims. And tensions rising in Texas. The family of the deadly track meet stabbing victim targeting by swatting calls. It's all coming up next for you right here on Opening Statements. Good Monday morning to you. Hope you had a wonderful Easter weekend. If you were celebrating, I'm Julie Grant, and this is Opening Statements. We're so glad you're here, and we've got a great show for you. Grab a cup of coffee or tea, whatever you like in the morning. It's time for my opening statement. Believe none of what you hear and only half of what you see. My Nana always used to tell me that, and she was right. And I'm thinking about Nana's wisest words this morning as we're getting ready to watch together the final chapter of Lori Vallow Daybell's trial. When Charles Vallow was killed, police first thought it looked like self-defense. That's what Lori's brother Alex Cox said. And police also heard information supporting that, both from Lori and from her daughter Tylee. The scene appeared to be such, with the baseball bat there and an apparent injury to Alex Cox's head. Also, the 911 call was placed. Cox supposedly was performing CPR on Charles. Fast forward to almost 6 years later at trial, and we're seeing exactly what my Nana was talking about. The evidence the state of Arizona has brought against Lori Vallow Daybell shows that it wasn't self-defense. The evidence shows this was murder. It wasn't what it looked like. It wasn't what people first said about it. This was all later contradicted by the evidence. So now, in my view, the real question for the jury is whether Lori Despicable Daybell was involved in this murder. Believe none of what you hear and only half of what you see. And let's hope, my friends, that we see Charles Vallow getting justice. That's my opening statement this Monday morning. Let me know if you like it. Right now, it's time for your daily docket.
Stuff is just pouring out of Christine's head and splashing all over the place. I tried to do something, but I can't because I'm stuck. I'm PCP and I'm stuck. So I couldn't move. I was in the verge of passing out, of blacking out on the PCP, the same thing that happened to me the Friday night. So the only thing that I can do is scream.
In Connecticut, closing arguments expected in the murder trial of Jose Morales. Court's going to resume at 10 a.m. Eastern. In Massachusetts, we're looking ahead to opening statements beginning in defendant Karen Reed's retrial. That one's set to begin tomorrow morning, and we'll be previewing the openings throughout the day. And Cult Mom back in court this morning for closing arguments. Because we're headquartered here in the East, that's going to start up at roughly 1:30 p.m. Eastern time out west. This case happening in Arizona. And we've got a 30-minute restricted delay imposed by the court on that as well. So be advised. And that, my friends, is our top story this Monday. Lori Vallow Daybell got one more chance in the spotlight. She's expected to rest officially today. But remember, she doesn't have to. She indicated she would, but it hasn't been done. So she could still call witnesses. Heck, she could still call herself to testify. So what will Counselor Cult Mom do? Throughout the trial, we got to see lawyer Lori in action.
Did you see with your eyes, or hear with your ears, or personally witness me conspire with my brother, Alex Cox, to murder my husband, Charles Vallow?
No.
Thank you. No more questions.
But we saw a very different version of Lori a couple years ago in Idaho when she was convicted of murdering her 2 children, JJ and Tylee, and her 5th husband's first wife, Tammy.
I have had many communications with Jesus Christ, the Savior of this world, and our heavenly parents. I have had many angelic visitors have come and communicated with me and even manifested themselves to me. Because of these communications, I know for a fact that my children are happy and busy in the spirit world. Because of my communications with my friend Tammy Daybell, I know that she is also very happy and extremely busy.
All right, so what can we expect from Cult Mom today? Let's talk about it. I got 2 sensational trial attorneys with me in the studio. Noah Pines is here, joining me remotely. Tommy Pope here as well. Good morning to you, gentlemen. Great to have you here. All right, so our team wants both of you, being such accomplished attorneys, to rate Lori's lawyering so far. You can grade her. Think about on the grade scale, the typical A through F. What would you give her as her own counsel? Noah.
Well, that last question that you showed in that clip, that was an A question, right? Did you see me do these things? The answer is no, and she stopped. She ended on a high note, didn't go any further, didn't let the witness explain. So I give her an A for that question. I mean, she's just crazy enough that she's doing a good job. Julie.
Yeah, it's not as bad as I thought it would be.
Right.
No, right? I mean, do you think so too, Tommy? Did you expect this to be way worse?
I did. I did expect it to be worse. I will tell you, overall, I give her a B. And quite candidly, it's because she hadn't gone to law school. Because, some of the objections, one of the lead-ins you played, and it was the sister, and she says, have you got anything to add here? And, the form of the question was probably an objection, but, she said relevance, and, I would come back, if Noah had said that, I would say it's extremely relevant whether we have anything to add to the proof of this case. And so I think other than, of course, basically she just doesn't pay any attention because the judge sustains most of the objections. She just keeps on rolling. But I think she's done an admirable job. I still think the old adage of having represent yourself, you have a fool for a client, I think she's making that mistake because I think she has nothing to lose. She could add things in her testimony, but I always think the most awkward part is a pro se defendant on the stand trying to go through that structure. And of course, every prosecutor always licks their chops as a chance to cross. But again, I think she's held her own well.
Right. I'm with you, Tommy. I think about this in this case, and we know this is a tough one, right? And I think about what a foolish decision, as you noted, Tommy, because had she called a great defense attorney to represent her, I mean, we might all be wondering if we're going to see a conviction. She should have called one of you, but here she is. She thinks she knows better than everybody else, and we'll see how the result turns out for her. Tell me, Noah, do you think these prosecutors should be at all nervous that they don't have this in the bag?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. And when you're trying a case against somebody when they don't know what they don't know, those are the scariest lawyers to try cases against because they do stuff that a rational lawyer wouldn't do, but sometimes it works. Yeah. And Tommy can probably tell you that too. He's probably tried cases against people where you're like, this lawyer doesn't know what they're doing, but they're so clueless it kind of works.
Right.
And that's a scary thing. And sometimes juries will feel bad, like when a lawyer is bad and representing a client, the jury feels bad for the client and gives them the benefit of the doubt.
Yes.
I've seen that happen many times. Oh, yeah, we knew this, but his lawyer or her lawyer was so bad that we're kind of giving him a pass there.
Right. I have as well. I always say prosecutors' biggest fear is losing to a pro se defendant.
Yeah.
I mean, it has happened to
We used to say we're going to turn in our bar card and badge when we're
exactly.
prosecutors. Like if I lose this one,
right.
I'm handing it over, Julie.
I know. Yeah, throughout the course of history, you know, I mean, yeah, it's, all right, let's talk about the idea of her maybe resting today or maybe putting on witnesses today. Tommy, the judge left it open, gave her the long holiday weekend. If she chooses to, she can still call witnesses or testify. What do you think she's going to do?
I think she would be effective if she had witnesses. I'm just not sure who she can call. I mean, you know, as we noted from the beginning of the trial, I hate to say it, but almost all the witnesses are deceased. Many of them at the hands of Lori and her compatriots. But so I think she would be effective doing it. And I think she would enjoy it. We got to go back to this is her extra 15 minutes of fame, but I think it would be effective. I can't visualize who she would call.
Mm-hmm. Right. What about herself, Noah? Do you think she'll call herself?
That's a hard. I can see her doing it again because she seems to be enjoying the process. Like this is freedom for her from her routine, and so maybe she wants to extend it. I could also see her not calling herself and then giving a very inappropriate, when I say legally inappropriate, closing argument and injecting a whole bunch of stuff that is not facts and evidence, and then seeing if the prosecutor objects. And you know, if I was the prosecutor in this case, I would have allowed a lot of her questions in because she's opening up the door to responding. You have to be careful, right, because, you know, it is a pro se defendant. You don't want to do anything, you know, that you can't do legally according to the rules, but she keeps opening up the door to all these answers. Like, do you have any direct evidence? Well, no, but then on redirect, well, what's your circumstantial? And they could bring it all in.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I know, she's got to be careful. She's such a wild card, who knows?
She's a wild card, yeah.
Let's listen back to her talking about Jesus showing her what she needed to do.
I was told by Jesus that I needed to go back and complete things that I had covenanted or promised to do before I was born. This caused me a lot of distress because I knew heaven was my real home, and I only wanted to be there. I was free from pain, emotional and physical. But then I was shown how I would help my children and others in the future. So ultimately, I did agree to go back to my body.
You know, I hate when defendants bring Jesus into it. Tommy Pope, does that grind your gears as much as it does mine when this woman, she commits 3 murders and acts like, oh, you know, Jesus is cool with it. Everybody should be too.
It's very delicate if you're on the other side, you know, particularly here in the South, because, you know, we want to be respectful of others' religion. And so it's a tough dance to even object.
Yeah, you know, and I think the thing that bothers me, being someone, you know, who I consider myself a religious, spiritual person, it just kills me when defendants like her, I mean, I think this is all a guise. It's all just trying to use religion to justify the homicides and justify the bad behavior. That's where I can't stand it. Noah, do you think anybody is buying that? Is anybody on the planet buying her story?
Besides her?
Yeah, like Jesus told her to.
No,
right.
I mean,
maybe Chad. Chad, I guess we could lump in there.
I think she truly believes what she's saying.
Yeah.
I think she's just a little cuckoo, right? And you can now see that that personality is not in this trial. It's like a different personality, right?
Good point.
And so I wouldn't be shocked if she had some sort of mental multiple personality disorder, because now she's acting like a totally different person.
Right. Right.
And
that's a great point, Noah. I would love to know what, if anything, she's diagnosed with. We have no idea, but boy, would we love to know. Yeah. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to leave it there for just a moment as we have to hit a break. Noah and Tommy are coming with me. I want you to do the same at home, please. When we return, here's what's next for you on Opening Statements.
The alleged shooter was also a long-standing member of the Leon County Sheriff's Office Citizen Advisory or Youth Advisory Council. So he has been steeped in the Leon County Sheriff's Office family.
What are we learning about the alleged shooter in the deadly FSU case? We'll talk about it, and families involved in the deadly track meet stabbing case being targeted. Stay with us.
The Court TV podcast will return.
At approximately 11:50 a.m., Thursday, April 17th, a gunman opened fire on the main campus of Florida State University in Tallahassee, shooting multiple individuals in the vicinity of the Student Union building. FSU police responded immediately, engaged, neutralized, and apprehended the shooter.
Just 4 days after a gunman killed 2 people at Florida State University, that Tallahassee campus will be reopening today. We'll have more, or rather more on the victims is what's trending in true crime. We have some information, but more continues pouring in. According to the Tallahassee Democrat, the shooting claimed the lives of Robert Morales and Tiru Chaba. Neither were students, but Morales was a university employee. Here's what else we know about that shooting last Thursday. Student Madison Askins survived by playing dead during the attack. Motive for the shooting still unknown this morning. A vigil held on Friday, a day after the shooting, where students, faculty, and community members came together to support the victims, including the university's president.
I'm angry. You're angry. Some of us are angry. Some of us are numb. I'm completely numb. Some of you are scared. I understand that. FSU is a family. We grieve together. We remind ourselves that we belong to a community that deeply loves Florida State University and shows up in hard times.
So we're asking, what do you believe the motive was for this shooting? Let's bring in our expert guest, criminologist and FSU alumna. Dr. Debbie Goodman is with us, and retired special agent with the Department of Homeland Security, Dr. Jason Piccolo, is with us as well. Good morning to you both. Dr. Debbie, let me begin with you. Thoughts on a potential motive here?
Good morning, Julie. It's a sad and somber time period here in Florida, and I've received a lot of text messages, emails in the days that have followed, and the question at hand is why. So I will answer as a criminologist, having profiled this individual and those who have come before him, but I think the answer is hate, Julie, and I'll use the acronym for further conversation points. H, hostility. These individuals have a great deal of hostility in their thoughts, their beliefs, their actions, their social media posts. A, I would say, is anti and against. This individual, there's reason to believe that there is ill will against a lot of different entities and groups dealing with race-related culture, ethnicity, and religion. I'll say T, Julie, for me as a criminologist, this is an act of terrorism. These mass shootings perpetrated by U.S. citizens against U.S. citizens. I hope the DA, in addition to 2 counts of first-degree murder, potentially 6 counts of attempted murder, will also be seeking a charge of terrorism. And then lastly, I would say the E is for extremist and extreme thinking ideology. This individual, as well as those who have come before him, are very extreme with ideology and hate. And these are my thoughts for this morning.
Really insightful analysis from you, Dr. Debbie. Thank you so much. I know this is tough to do, a place that's so near and dear to your heart. The community's grieving. I know you're grieving for everyone there. Boy, that's brilliant. Hate, the hostility, the anti, the against, the terrorism, the extremism. A lot to think about here. Dr. Jason Piccolo, I want to turn to you next. You've seen a lot. You've served in our military. We thank you for that. You've served as a special agent with Homeland Security. You're a firearms expert. What do you think the possible motive could have been here?
I would go with hate. I would go with extremism. I would go with some sort of motive that ties him to FSU, or maybe that's an easy target. It was something where he could have a mass casualty event. He knows these kind of things. He's been around law enforcement. He knows weak spots. So that was probably a target of opportunity.
Dr. Jason, let me ask you something. I've heard some people, lay people, reacting, and this is just so horrific. There's a lot of discussions, as you know, online about this, and some people are saying, can't understand how so many people get shot in such a short amount of time. What do you say to that when you hear people say, gosh, how did this happen in 5 minutes?
Well, we've been to the range, you and I. We know how much ammo you can hold in one magazine. So it can happen in that short amount of time. And if someone is proficient with a firearm, they're going to be able to identify targets and shoot at that target. In this case, targets being humans. So it's very easy to inflict a mass casualty in a very, very short amount of time. And from what I understand from police reports, there was actually other firearms in his vehicle, and he was using a .45 caliber pistol. So he could have inflicted a lot more damage, and thank God that law enforcement responded in immediately.
Yes. I'm glad you said that, Dr. Jason. Thank you for that, because there are two ways of looking at this. Obviously it's horrible that we had casualties. It's horrible we had injuries at all. Thank God we didn't have more, and thanks to the quick actions of all of those first responders who got there, all of the members of law enforcement who shot at him. I'm not sure how many people took shots, but they were able to subdue him so that he could no longer be a threat to anyone. I want to shift our focus now from the potential motive to more about the accused triggerman. So this guy's identified as 20-year-old Phoenix Eichner. He's a Florida State University student, the stepson of a sheriff's deputy in Leon County where this happened. More is coming to light on his childhood. Some are calling it a bumpy childhood. Reporter Katie LeGrone with WFTS reports on the family's custody battle involving Eichner.
Court documents reveal Phoenix Eichner, the 20-year-old alleged shooter behind this deadly daytime shooting rampage at Florida State University Thursday, grew up amid years of family drama, including a transatlantic custody battle that took him more than 4,500 miles away from his home in Tallahassee when he was just a child. According to this probable cause affidavit, in 2015, Phoenix Eichner, who went by Christian when he was a kid, was illegally taken to Norway by his biological mother, Anne-Marie Eriksson. Both had Norwegian and U.S. citizenship. According to the affidavit, when Dad reported the kidnapping, he told authorities his son had developmental delays and special needs, which he feared would not be taken care of without access to his doctors here in the U.S. His son, he said, was on medication for several health and mental issues, including a growth hormone disorder and ADHD.
All right, so just a little bit about his background. And once again, the stepson of a sheriff's deputy, the officials who led the press conference the day of this incident made sure to note that this woman has a record of exceptional service to Leon County. They also say that her former duty weapon was used in this attack. So the question we're asking this morning, similar to Ethan Crumbley's case and his parents in Michigan, the Oxford school shooting case, might Phoenix Eichner's family face any criminal charges? Dr. Debbie, let me begin with you on that. Your thoughts, please.
I would say potentially, Julie, and whichever case we would look to in our history of mass shootings, particularly at the school sites, whether it's K through 12, Parkland shooting, Columbine, Uvalde, Sandy Hook, or at the college and university level. One of the worst, of course, was Virginia Tech, but I think we would see what your earlier videos were pointing to, and that would be some type of family discord, disharmony, but ultimately it is the individual who has made the choice. I think potentially as this investigation unfolds, if it can be demonstrated that whether it's, biological father, biological mother, and or stepmother were in some capacity negligent and reckless and did not get this individual help, then yes, potentially it could be similar to the Ethan Crumley case and charges of involuntary manslaughter, potentially.
Great points, Dr. Debbie, thank you. Dr. Jason, I want to ask you the same question as to whether you think charges are a possibility, and also, would you school us on weapons security in the home when you are serving, whether it's state government, the federal government? What is the expectation in keeping your duty weapon safe?
Well, the expectation is to have a safe place to put it. And in that case, a lockbox, something that only you have access to. You only have access to the key or the code. Now, in this case, if they were negligent, I would say like having firearms everywhere and they know he has mental issues, then there may be negligence there. But the thing is, you need to keep those weapons secure. And this includes, what if someone else comes into that house? What if it's not just the primary occupants of it? So when you're on duty and when you're off duty, you need to have that weapon, even if it's a former weapon that you used to use, secured.
Exactly. We have to leave it there for now. Thank you so much for that, Dr. Jason Piccolo, Dr. Debbie Goodman. Always brilliant analysis from you both. Thank you kindly. We'll see you back here soon. Our hearts go out to those victims as they continue the healing process, and we'll continue following this case for you. But when we come back, we're turning to another case. This case is really taking on a life of its own. We're talking about the deadly track meet stabbing case, and Lori Vallow Daybell wrapping up her trial in Arizona this week, as it appears. But this isn't going to be the last time we're going to see her in court. She's got another trial coming up. So will she represent herself?
Spouses having insurance policies is not a crime. Collecting Social Security is not a crime. Self-defense is not a crime. A family tragedy is not a crime. It's a tragedy.
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
Welcome back. This morning, we're shining a spotlight on the Texas high school track meet stabbing case. This is awful. Student Karmelo Anthonoy is charged with murdering 17-year-old Austin Metcalf. He's also a student just from another school. The incident happening at a track meet. Authorities say that Metcalf was stabbed to death there. Now, tensions riding high over the situation after a home linked to Austin's family was swatted by police. The swatting call happened just hours after Austin's father showed up uninvited to a press conference being held by Karmelo's family.
What we've seen at the beginning of this press conference, of the father being at this press conference, these are my words. Don't quote anybody, is a disrespect to the dignity of his son. That was disrespectful and just shows you all the character. Who was not invited, he knows that it's inappropriate to be near this family.
Okay, so the young man who died, his father came to that press conference. And he's been very outspoken, even through his grieving process, telling people to stop making the case something that it's not. There are some people saying that this case needs to be one that is a case based on racial issues and any racial animosity. And he's saying it's a case between two human beings, human issues at play. Nonetheless, the Anthonoy family did not like Mr. Metcalf there. So where do we go from here? Everybody online won't stop talking about this case or give these families privacy. And apparently the Metcalf family has been victimized by these swatting calls after the dad showed up at that press conference. What needs to happen here? Because this case isn't even underway, yet in the court of public opinion, it is. Let's bring in our legal eagles in the studio with me. Noah Pines. Joining me remotely, attorney Melba Pearson. You both have experience serving as prosecutors. Melba, you're a professor now. Noah, you're in the private sector doing criminal defense work. So you both have seen and tried many self-defense cases, and we know that Mr. Anthony said to police on the scene, I did this in self-defense. We know that's what this case is going to be about. Is there a valid claim for that? Will be the next question, because anyone can say it, but can you legally make that out? So I want to dig through that with you both. Noah, would you get us started, please?
Sure. Well, a valid claim for self-defense is made in the courtroom, Julie. And what we're seeing now is just indicative of our society. You know, the fact that there's a couple things wrong. Nobody should be swatted, okay? Right. Either side. Right. Nobody should be doxed, either side. We have rules of engagement that us lawyers play by. And if you're not in the game, I hate to call it a game, but if you're not in the arena,
sure, the profession,
stay out of it,
right.
Because you're not helping anybody. And you're a criminal if you dox or swat somebody, and you should go to jail for that because people die.
Right.
And you know, you're sitting there behind your keyboard doing it. The other issue, you know, and I take, it doesn't matter which side, if it's the, you know, in this case is when the father of the victim showed up to the press conference, the person, I think it was a pastor, who was saying it was inappropriate. That is a horrible thing that he's doing for his family's client.
Right.
Right? That shouldn't happen either. You know, if this is a human thing, you want humans to be, he has the right to be there. Maybe you don't want him there. Maybe you embrace him is the way to do it. But one day, you know, Mr. Anthony might need some forgiveness from Mr. Metcalf. That might happen. That's probably going to happen at some point if he gets convicted. And to sort of blow it up in the beginning is not the right way to handle this. Let the professionals handle this. And that person conducting the press conference is not a professional.
Right, yeah, that may have made things worse, right?
It 100% made things worse.
Yeah, and as you said, no, it needs to be in the profession, in the courtroom. Melba, let me turn to you, please, about that. Gosh, we're in this day and age where this case, as you know, it's taken on a life of its own. But as Noah said, and I know you agree, you know, where things are going to matter is in that court of law. How do you see this playing out, this self-defense claim from Karmelo Anthonoy?
Yeah, so good morning, and I definitely have to co-sign Noah's comments on this. But I think it's going to play out from the standpoint of, number one, we don't know the full scope of the details. We hear bits and pieces, but again, there's been no public release of any statements Karmelo Anthonoy made other than right on the scene that I did it and this was self-defense. We don't have any video, so we don't know the nuts and bolts of what this self-defense claim is going to look like. We can speculate, and a good prosecutor will have to speculate because the first time they're going to be able to hear the entire story in full will be when Karmelo Anthonoy gets on the witness stand to testify, because there's going to be no other way for him to be able to prove self-defense, because again, a prosecutor has the burden to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. But when you claim self-defense, the defense now has to prove that the actions that were taken were reasonable, were proportional in response to the threat, and lay out why they felt threatened. So the prosecutor is going to have to, you know, make sure to game out, not to make it a game again, but just to really think through all the different avenues that could be presented to be able to either A, rebut it, and if you can't, then now you're in a separate situation. But lastly, I do want to note that while charges have been filed, there's still the grand jury that has to speak on whether or not this is the right charge. He's been arrested on first-degree murder, which is Texas equivalent of second-degree murder, but we don't know what the grand jury says, and they're going to hear testimony as well.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Melba, thank you for that. This is so early, as you know, this is so early in the process, as we know, right? We don't know how this will play out, and neither family should be attacked. And this makes me sick. I have a clip we want to play now. This is Karmelo Anthonoy's mom. So Karmelo is the accused in this case, and this is his mom, Kayla Hayes, speaking out at that press conference we were just talking about.
Our address and my husband's previous employer's address has been put on all social media platforms. My husband had to take a leave of absence because he's afraid what may happen to our family. We have endured death threats, My 13-year-old daughter is afraid to sleep in her own bedroom because she's fearful of what may happen to her.
This is horrible. This shouldn't happen. It shouldn't happen. And this was exactly what you were just touching on, Noah, about the doxing, the attacks, all that. It's nauseating, isn't it?
Correct.
How do we contain this? I want to get your thoughts on Melba. How do we contain this? Does law enforcement need to speak up? Who needs to say something?
I mean, this is pervasive in our culture these days, whether it's in, whether it's political or cases or, interactions that are just out in the public. It's got to stop.
Yeah.
But it's never going to stop because people just sit behind their phones and post stuff.
Yeah, it's terrible.
But yeah, law enforcement obviously should figure out who did the doxing and the swatting, and those people should be arrested.
Arrest them, charge them all.
Yep.
Exactly. Mel, but your thoughts on how do we contain this? We're in this era where people who have nothing to do want to intercede and harm people and harass and bully. It's disgusting. Your thoughts, please.
It is disgusting, and I think, sadly, it's a testament to where we are as a society and a country right now, where we don't talk, there's a lack of empathy, and, people are just very stuck in their corners, and they believe what they believe. But also, too, some of it's shaped by life experience, and if you've seen and witnessed injustice, you obviously will be very sensitive to these issues moving forward. So there's a lot at play here. I think that the best thing that can be done at this juncture is for all the key parties just to be like, basically make an agreement just not to speak on the case. And it's my understanding that the Anthonoy family has indicated that this was going to be their one and only press conference until after the trial. I would think the prosecution would not want to give any interviews until the grand jury comes back. And once there's this not in the media as much, I think a lot of this tension will die down. But I think it's going to have to come from the top, not only law enforcement, but all the key stakeholders saying, listen, let's let this case play out in court and reserve judgment until then.
Well, but that's such a great idea. Now I know we can't turn back the hands of time, but they should have just united at that moment when the dad would say, look, we're both in very bad positions. Both of our lives have been turned upside down by these events. We want it to play out in the courtroom, respect the privacy of both of our families. Maybe they'll, like you said, Mom, maybe they'll get together and do that, and then hopefully it has the trickle-down effect. Great analysis from you both, as always. Mel, I know we need to let you get on with your day. Thank you for everything, for your time, for your expertise this morning. I know you're sticking with us for one more segment before you got to go to court. We're going to hit a break. When we come back, we're talking about lawyer Lori. Are we going to see her do it again? She's got another trial coming up. After this one concludes in Arizona, she's got a second case coming up, an attempted homicide case. Talk about it next.
This is the Court TV podcast.
Spent the last 11 years of my life spending time with Lori and her now deceased husband, Charles. I don't know what happened to those kids. I know that there's people who do and they're not talking. I don't know why they're doing what they're doing. It doesn't make any sense.
Now, for what's tipping the scales as we're waiting for closing arguments to begin early this week in Lori's trial. We're wondering whether she's going to represent herself at her next trial. That's right, she's got another one, remember? She's accused in the attempted murder of her niece's ex-husband back in October of 2019. That's him, the victim, Brandon Boudreaux. He survived. He was once married to Lori's niece, Melanie, and he says his relationship with the family began changing when Lori started having extreme religious beliefs. Here he is testifying at Lori's first trial, where there were no cameras in court.
As I drove forward, the window came up, and I saw a gun with what looked like a silencer, heard a bang, and my driver's side window shattered. And so my natural reaction, instead of turning left into my driveway, I drove an electric car, so it was very instant, but I just pushed the gas, and it just shot me forward.
Brandon Boudreaux was shot at as he was pulling into his own driveway. Thank goodness he lived to tell about it. It's suspected that the shooter was Alex Cox, the same person who shot and killed Charles Vallow. So, could the verdict in this case involving Charles' death tip the scales for the next trial? involving the attempt on Brandon Boudreau's life. And will Lori represent herself in that case? Let's bring back in attorneys Noah Pines and Tommy Pope and talk about it. Okay, so in terms of might the verdict have an impact? Noah, what do you think? Do you think that may dictate what Lori will do in terms of fighting the second case or pleading? No. Not at all.
No. I mean, you said it before. What does she have to lose, right? So she's going to keep doing what she's doing. I think she's enjoying not just the spotlight, but sort of having a little bit of more control of her life. When she's representing herself, she has more freedom, and she's not just sitting, she's active in it. And so I think she's going to keep representing herself.
Okay, this is what we want to know. Noah, thank you for that. Tommy, do you agree? Do you think she's going to keep on keeping on as her own counsel?
Absolutely. I agree with Noah. She, like I said, she's enjoying it. She's already in prison for life. You know, we used to, comment that the hearings for inmates was their day to at least get out and maybe get something different to eat that day, as, the security would bring them to court for a day. And so she's getting a long-term opportunity to be at a different jail. I mean, as silly as that sounds, I don't see how she doesn't. Now, from an evidentiary standpoint, if there's a conviction here, we don't yet know if she's going to testify in this trial, but it could give you more cross-examination. In South Carolina, it was called LILE evidence, prior bad act evidence, which is really strictly construed, from an appellate standpoint. But then again, it may come in because she's not keeping a tight rein on it. So I think that if there's a conviction here, it helps, the issue. But again, we got the same problem with the next case with the Jeep, with the Texas tag, and we think it might have been the brother, but he's gone. And so there's a lot of the difficulty you have in this case, but maybe even harder. And so I think she'll enjoy herself regardless what happens in this case. She'll enjoy herself in the next one too. I think the visual of her carrying the big file coming in the courtroom, is what every attorney aspires to when we, head off to law school. And so I think she's living her best life now, all things considered.
Yes, Tommy, I think you're right. And I love a point you made there about this could be even more difficult. And I wanted to key in on something with you. And Noah, I'll throw this one to you as the last question. Attempted homicides, people don't realize, can often be more challenging than homicides because, thank God, you have the live victim. Yeah. But you're proving the same elements, essentially, that you would prove whether there was a deceased victim. Would you speak to that, please?
Well, obviously, they're going to have to prove that she either did it or was a part of it. And, when you have a victim who's deceased, the jury is more likely to accept the circumstantial evidence because there's not a witness there typically to testify, an eyewitness to a murder. Right. And now, like when there's a direct testimony, even though the jury's not supposed to weigh it differently in most states, direct versus circumstantial, sometimes they do.
Right.
They want to hear more.
Yeah, exactly. This is going to get interesting. Poor Brandon Boudreau. Thank goodness he's alive and well and here to tell about it. But again, not going to be an easy case. I know we have to let you both get off to court. Thank you for such a great show. Attorneys Noah Pines and Tommy Pope, thank you both so much. That is all for this episode of Opening Statements, friends. You can watch it again. Please share it. Tell your friends. We do this every weekday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. That's all for this episode of Opening Statements, my friends. I'm your host, Julie Grant, and it's been great being with you. On this show, I am calling out any pants on fire moments in our big trials and true crime stories, and I want you to come along with me. Opening Statements is live every weekday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern on Court TV. Thank you for downloading this episode. Please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends. You can watch past shows anytime you like on CourtTV.com.